When we're born and the first 3 years of life, our brain doubles in size. This is the only time that that happens. So if we're going to wait till they're 4, 5, or 6 to address the problem, we've already missed out on a very critical opportunity to provide intervention, to provide help, to provide support, to get progression. David, you ready to level up?
Let's level up.
Hey, all you mamas and papas, I'm Alex.
I'm David.
We want to talk about a pretty touchy but yet serious topic today. And that is when to let a friend or family member know that you have concerns for their child.
This topic is very sensitive in being how you approach it. There could be lots of defense mechanisms and defense feelings going on. So how we want to give you a sort of a pathway how to approach it.
As a professional, I know when to turn it off. And typically, I don't approach family members or friends. I wait for them to approach me. I'm very vocal about what it is that I do, and I'm very vocal and being an advocate for early intervention. So I essentially leave the door open for them to approach me, unless it's clear as day that I need to step in and suggest maybe seeking out early intervention. For the vast majority of people seeking intervention, it's a free assessment just to determine if there's a delay. Finding out that there's a delay doesn't mean it's a diagnosis. It just means that currently, when compared to other children of the same age, your child may not be doing something specific that they should be doing. And if they're not doing that, there are services to help them do it.
So the background for that, the research shows that if there is a delay right now, if that delay does not get addressed, it continues on with more delays throughout their years of life. Now, let's say we've noticed this when they're an infant or a toddler. Now, that delay won't get addressed, for most kids, won't get addressed until kindergarten, when the school district does their assessments, when the teachers notice that the child really isn't responding to their name, really isn't understanding how to socialize with peers in her setting of a classroom or her setting or his setting of the classroom.
So if we're waiting till 4 or 5, that's 4 or 5 years of consistently reinforcing that behavior that is considered inappropriately, which 4 or 5 years may not seem like a whole lot, but in terms of the brain, it's significant. When we're born and the first 3 years of life, our brain doubles in size. This is the only time that that happens. So if we're going to wait till they're 4, 5, or 6 to address the problem, we've already missed out on a very critical opportunity to provide intervention, to provide help, to provide support, to get progression.
Now, how can we approach a parent that is very defensive about talking about their child's delays or some of the missed milestones?
As a professional, we've done intake assessments, either the actual assessments or led actual initial assessments with parents, where we have to break the news to the parents that, yes, your child is showing a significant delay. And there's been times where I've sat across from parents and I can see it in the parent's face. They want to grab the pen and stab me in the throat. No one wants to hear that there's something wrong with their child. But we're not doing it in a mean way. We're not doing it to try to label. We're doing it because if there is a delay, we can provide services to address the delay.
Now, there's a difference between delays and diagnosis. Okay, delays meaning they're missing their milestones, and our intervention is there to help build those milestones. A diagnosis would come later after the intervention and possibly before they start school. Now, you have to be very careful with those two because none of us are, unless you're a psychologist, can really give a diagnosis. Mm-hmm. Okay? So when you do address delays, don't mention anything like autism, don't mention anything like intellectual disability. You as a concerned individual, you don't have to address diagnosis. It's not your job. What you can do is come off very meaningful to the individual that you're just worried about missed milestones.
And addressing that with a family member, it can be very difficult. we can give you a few tips in order to address it. For example, if you have a 28-month-old nephew or niece who isn't yet talking, and your relative, your family member may say, oh, well, their dad or their mom didn't talk till they were 5. It's like, okay, well, that's good for them. But what about your son now? Wouldn't you like to hear them say, I love you? Or maybe posing the question, why hasn't he said, I love you, Auntie? And the parent of that child may say, oh, well, he's just not comfortable yet. Or he tells me he loves me. Or he shows me that he loves me by giving me hugs or kisses. But showing affection is different from actually saying, I love you. Or using functional communication to communicate those feelings.
Or even imitating those words. You know, if you say, I love you, if the child really isn't repeating those words back to you by 28 months, you know, that's something you can address to the parent. You know, wouldn't we like to hear those words? Really draw into their feelings and have them reflect what they're feeling as far as not seeing those milestones. Rather than telling them, you're not doing this right. Mm-hmm. He's not doing this right. She's not doing this right. Try to refrain from that because it's only going to build up more of a defense mechanism for the parent.